Hello everyone, welcome to another access control coaching session. My name is Cole Nebaker. I am the Training and Events Manager for PDK, and in today's video we are going to be covering controller continuity. As per usual, be sure to leave your comments in the chat box to the side of the video, and we will address them at the end of the video. There's about a 30-second buffer between when I speak and when things actually show up on your screen. So it's important to get those notes or those questions down as soon as possible so that we don't miss them. Additionally, be sure to like and subscribe to the PDK channel. We have lots of educational content like this once a month. I think that covers the housekeeping items, so let's go ahead and jump straight into the material. Again, we are going to be covering controller continuity. So to begin, controller continuity is going to be it's going to be a feature on all Red Series controllers that allow you to store a local database on your controller itself. So now it's worth noting that this isn't a full database. This is a micro database specific to the doors that are connected to the controller. So this isn't something like the cloud node. It's a much smaller database, but it will store all the rules, schedules, and audit logs on the controller itself. This allows your access control system to continue functioning even in cases where the controller has lost communication with the cloud node. This isn't a permanent solution, it's a temporary solution. These controllers are not quite as advanced as the cloud node. So that's the key part I want to differentiate here, is the loss of internet versus the loss of a cloud node. Controller continuity only takes effect if the cloud node is lost. If there is still a local network and the cloud node is still operational, there will be no changes to any of your access control. Everything will be fully operational. The design of controller continuity is to take over in those cases where maybe the local network goes down or maybe the cloud node spontaneously combusts. Some unpredictable situation where you've completely lost all of those access rules and your direct connection to the cloud. So the way controller continuity works is it's stored on a little memory chip on the controller. The cloud node itself maintains the entirety of the database. The design of the cloud node is not only to establish that connection up to the cloud, but also to store the entire database. So it's generally enough. The cloud node is generally enough. But in those situations where the controller can't see the cloud node, it reverts to controller continuity. They only store the database specific to the doors connected to that door controller. So what that means is, let's say we have a 4-door controller. This 4-door controller, of course, has 4 doors connected to it. The database on this 4-door controller is only going to store the people and schedules and rules of the people that have access to those 4 doors, if that makes sense. So if a person and a schedule are not assigned to one of those doors, their backup credentials are not even uploaded to that controller. It's a moot point. There's no purpose because that person does not have access to that door controller. Audit logs are still maintained as well. So people are coming and going freely. The controller is continuing to grant and deny access accordingly. All of those audit logs are being stored on the controller, and they'll be resynced with the cloud when that connection is restored. So the way we configure this is going to be within PDK.io. Now, at ISC West, which was just last week, we showed off a new web interface, a new interface for PDK.io. And so things have shifted very slightly, or maybe look a little bit different. But the place that we find these settings in the new configuration, the refactored PDK.io, if you will, is going to be under System Settings, which has existed and continues to exist. It just looks a little bit different. Instead of navigating over to credentials, you now just scroll down on a single page And about halfway down, maybe a little further than halfway down, there is a section called continuity. It outlines a description of what continuity even is, and it gives you the option to hot link over to our knowledge base article with additional details about what's covered within controller continuity. Now, you can kind of see on my screen here that we've got time before eCard fallback and scheduled access if time is unknown. So I mentioned earlier that controller continuity is not a permanent solution. It will not go indefinitely. The memory card is just not big enough for that. So what it does is it works for a set duration of time before it reverts to the eCards. What we can do is we can define that time. So if you're an installer looking to cover all your bases for your customer, you may want to set that to a pretty good time span. In this particular screenshot, I have it set to 14 days, which is the maximum. It ranges anywhere from 5 minutes up to 14 days. So you can pick one of those time slots in between. Regardless what you choose there, just keep in mind that's how long everything will continue functioning with people's access until they start to notice a difference. So be sure to cover your average maintenance call time. I don't know if I phrased that very well. Be sure to cover, give yourself sufficient time, I guess is maybe a better way to say that. Give yourself sufficient time of what it will normally take you to get out and do a service call. Because generally in instances like this, it has something to do with the network or it has something to do with the cloud-based connection. The second part of this tab is scheduled access if time is unknown. Now, the controllers have the ability to maintain an onboard clock. And that is what allows us to maintain this controller continuity in effect, is because the controller can determine what time it is, what date it is, and determine whether somebody is allowed or denied access. Let's say somebody only has access 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. It doesn't do us much good to have controller continuity if the controller is continuing to give them access after 5 p.m. But in certain rare, very rare instances, to the point that I've not actually seen it myself, time can become unknown on the controller, where it loses track of time. That's typically where there is not enough precaution taken to continue powering the controller. If the time is unknown, what do you want it to do? You can determine whether you want it to fall back on eCards, allow 24/7 access, or just ignore schedules entirely. So you have a few different security measures you can take there, so that if that time is ever unknown, do you want to let everyone in, or do you want to let only those with 24/7 access in, or do you want to revert access to eCards only? And you know, I don't know if I've specifically pointed this out yet in this, but eCards are still a thing. So if you have eCards on your system, they will continue to operate indefinitely. Those ones will work indefinitely. eCards are 10 emergency backup credentials given to select individuals, typically the installer, the management team on site, maybe some administrators, and it allows them to override and bypass a door controller if need be in specific cases where maybe continuity has ended. So that is your continuity settings. Be sure to enter in eCards as well, because continuity does cover most situations. It doesn't mean that if you you can just rely entirely on it in cases where maybe the time frame has elapsed. Additionally, with this, I would encourage you to go in and check all of your system's time zones. Back when I was in support, this was the most common, well, probably not the most common call, but it was certainly up there. It was certainly one of the more common calls. People couldn't get access to their doors. And it was typically because they didn't set their time zone on their controller. They left it at UTC 0 or whatever it is. That's the easiest way to make sure that your access control doesn't work quite the way you want it to. You'll need to go in and adjust it, set the region to US if you're here in the US, And that will give you your standard time zones, your Pacific, your Mountain, Arizona, Central, Eastern time zones. Now getting into your syncing, this is another part where I think some people get held up because they see the sync completed and they see that it was weeks ago. I want to emphasize that that's not an issue. There are actually two tabs indicating your syncing status and completion date. There's the sync status one, which says synced or pending, and then there is the sync completed, which shows you a date and a time. Some people go into their system in health and they see, oh, well, my sync was last completed 2 or 3 weeks ago. That's not unusual. The reason for that is because the sync only needs to take place when changes are made on the system. That means if you have a fairly small system or you don't make a lot of changes to your system, it's pretty consistent. It doesn't change a whole lot. That means that your sync completed is just going to stay stagnant. It has no need to update the database on the controllers. So that's not a problem. Generally, if you see sync status as synced, you're good to go. If you do make changes to the system that pertain to a specific controller, you will see that sync status change to syncing, and it'll turn, I think it's like a yellowish orangish color. It's probably the PDK yellow. I don't recall exactly. But that will just indicate that both the cloud and the controller are unified in their information. Both of them are current and up to date. Oh, I'm sorry, it's pending, not syncing. So pending under the sync status, not syncing. Sync completed will only show for the last time the changes were made to the system or the last time logs were uploaded. So if a controller goes offline and comes back online, maybe due to a network disruption, you may see that the sync status becomes pending, and you will see that the sync completed date has updated to today's date because there may have been some audit logs on the controller that now need to be synced with the cloud. So it's a two-way street. It is just dependent on whether it's going down or coming up. So let's go over some common troubleshooting. All right, there's a couple of generally consistent factors here. The first cause of concern when a controller goes offline is that there is a communication issue. This can be because of the communication from the cloud nodes to the controller, or it can be the controller itself. So first thing you'll want to do is check that the controller's Ethernet port, CAT cable, switch, and cloud node Ethernet port are showing the correct things. You should see lights on them. The door controller will have lights on its Ethernet jack. The cloud node will have lights on its Ethernet jack. And typically the switch, the router, whatever you're plugged into will have lights on its Ethernet jack. So that's the first step. Perhaps it's not Ethernet. If it's not Ethernet, you'll want to check the wireless. PDK uses the Zigbee protocol to communicate wirelessly between the cloud node and the controller. So it is possible that there is wireless interference, in which case you may need to find and remove the obstruction or the interference, or maybe sometimes you just need to give it a good power cycle. Whatever the case is, there's typically some communication issue between the cloud node and the controller. Especially if you log into PDK.io and you see the cloud node is online, that means that the solution is somewhere on site. It could be a cloud node issue. Make sure that the cloud node has lights, that is powered on, that the Ethernet ports has lights, and that it shows online in PDK.io. So you'll want to check those three things. You'll want to check power, Ethernet, and connection to the cloud. It is possible that if it only meets 2 of those 3 requirements, it is going to lose communication on site. Something worth noting, just kind of as a side note, is to check for shorts. If the cloud node is not powered on and it's plugged in and everything, and you even have a backup battery, it's very possible that you have a short in the system. If you have a short in the system, you may lose power throughout the entire unit instead of just one certain piece. So if you don't have power specifically to the cloud node, be sure to check for shorts. It's sometimes as simple as one of the wires from the 2-pin connector for the power just reaching over and touching the other side when it's not supposed to. The final possibility is that it could be other equipment issues. This could include Ethernet ports on a switch. It could include the Ethernet cable itself, the CAT cable. I'd recommend testing the switch by plugging it, the port you have all of the units tied into. I would just say tie it into your laptop or something that you have on site. Maybe try swapping some patch cables around to see if other parts of the building lose internet, or I should say network. It could be that the CAT cable has become broken somewhere along the line. It could be the switch itself, so the easiest way is to test with the lights to make sure that it has lights on both ends. But again, you can plug into it and see if you have network and Ethernet, or man, I'm struggling with a simple word, internet coming out of the other end. And ensure that no changes have been made to the network. There's not many changes that will interfere other than firewall settings. So if the IT team on site has made any changes to the network, that's a very easy question to ask. Hey, have you made any changes to the network? From there, you can determine if maybe there's just some ports that have been closed, or if a firewall's been configured that hasn't whitelisted your MAC addresses or your IP addresses. In that instance, just get with the IT team, give them the MAC addresses of the hardware, which will be stored in PDK.io. You can find it under System and Health. Very simply, just give that to them and make sure that they whitelist it so that there are no issues that could potentially be going through it. All right, so that covers our slide deck. Now I have a very simple little demonstration here, if we want to call it that. It's just one of our little training kits. I have it battery powered, and I don't know how else to show that it's not connected to any sort of yeah, I guess I could lift it up. Keith's here for me. You can see there are no wires here. This is pure magic. This is a controller in continuity mode. So I had it plugged in last night. I uploaded a few credentials, and then I unplugged it just this morning and brought it in here with this battery-powered backup so that I could just show that nothing's connected to it. So I programmed a few cards into here. You can see I've got a couple of key fobs here. Maybe you can. There we go, against the white wall. So if I present them, you'll see access is granted. You can probably see that blue LED better than the green LED on top of the reader. You'll notice that it continues to function. It's not exclusive to fobs. It works with pins. Unfortunately, these readers are glued on here, so I couldn't switch it with a pin pad so that I could show you the pins work. But you'll just have to trust me, they just work. Same with Bluetooth credentials. Bluetooth credentials also work. Everything will continue to function. The database will continue to function. Now, as I showed you in my screenshot, I have this configured to 14 days. So obviously this battery won't last 14 days, but if I went ahead and plugged it into the wall and just left it disconnected through the Ethernet jack and the wireless for the next 14 days, up until 13 hours or 13 days and 23 hours and 59 minutes, it's going to continue to function and store those audit logs. If I plug it in now, what you would see, what you would currently see in the software, I wish I could show this. I couldn't really think of a good way to show this on a presentation. What you would see in the software right now is a disconnected device in the System and Health tab. It'll tell you when it last saw, which was presumably this morning at about 8:15 maybe, and it will tell you how long you have to get it back online. Now, very important with controller continuity is to set up notifications. It doesn't do you much good to have controller continuity if you don't know that anything's broken and that you need to go fix it. So if you haven't on your sites with your customers, I would encourage you to go ahead and program maybe some push notifications of comm loss or power loss or whatever you choose. That comm loss will help you determine that a controller has lost communication with the cloud node and needs to be restored. That's step number one. But also step number two is coming up with a plan to bring these controllers back online. In my case, it's very simple. I just need to plug the power back in, and I need to plug Ethernet back into the controller. Once it's brought back online, it will show connected again, but that sync status will say pending. It'll stay that way depending on how much it has to send back to the cloud. It may just be a few seconds, it may be a few minutes, but ultimately it will eventually say synced. It will say everything is synced back to the cloud, and all of these card swipes that I've done just right here will populate in the reports tab. So I can go back into reports now, and even now I would even be able to say that at 10:21 a.m. Mountain Time, Cole swiped his card at the controller. So it's very seamless. It's just designed to work in the background. But again, I want to emphasize there are troubleshooting tips. If you missed that, just go back to the slides that I was just on. Otherwise, make sure that you have a real-time notification that something is wrong, because it benefits you nothing if you never know to go fix something, because ultimately once that 14 days are up, your customer is going to be like, hey, nothing's working. You're going to be like, wow, I wish I listened to Cole and just set up a push notification. It's super easy. So let me go ahead and read the questions, and if you haven't asked your question yet, be sure to drop it in the chat. Again, there's about a 30-second delay, so by the time I get through these questions, you're going to wish you had dropped it earlier. Okay. Slides, new UI, yeah. I don't know at which point Cooper dropped. Had to have Jeremy help me fix it. I'm not quite sure which part of the presentation that was, but Jeremy is amazing. He does a great job. And Tyler is flattering me by saying Cole the extraordinaire and access control magic. Okay, no, I get it. It's because of the hole. Yeah. Thank you, Tyler. I was I was hoping somebody would praise me on that. I don't see any questions, so it's either nobody's dropped their questions yet, or we just covered everything in the slides, which I'm going to take. But if you do have any questions, be sure to reach out to sales, S-A-L-E-S, at prodatakey.com, or you can call them at 801-317-8802. They're option 1. And we have monthly trainings just like this one. So we're going to continue to have them. They're on the first Tuesday of every month, and we cover a wide variety of commonly requested topics, things that are designed to help you become even better and more familiar with PDK systems.
Got a question.
Oh, good. Greg?
Why limit the CC to 14 days?
That's a good question, Greg. The reason for that is because we don't want customers to ghost their dealers. Be like, all right, it's installed, you're charging me X amount of dollars per month, I'm gonna unplug everything and just revert to controller continuity. We designed the 14 days to be long enough in situations where emergencies call for it. So take Florida, just this last summer. I was actually down there for a show and then a vacation in Orlando. And fortunately, Orlando's kind of isolated, but they had the hurricane come through. A couple of them technically. It was a rough year for Florida. But that's what that controller continuity is designed for, is to keep things operational in cases where internet access is cut off. The cloud nodes were typically working in that case, but if the local network got damaged by the weather, the controllers could take over, and 14 days was typically sufficient to make corrections and fixes to the system. So the 14 days is kind of that sweet spot between not allowing customers to just ghost their dealer and be like, all right, I'm unplugging everything and whatever, while also maintaining the full database in the case that emergencies happen or network issues happen. And Ryan said, Cole's ego shall grow even further. It's already there. It's through the roof, man. Thanks. All right, so I think I dropped the sales contact information, the phone number. Follow the YouTube channel, please. And we'll catch you next month on the first Tuesday of the month in another access control coaching session. Thanks, everyone, for tuning in.